As you know, we are recording everything. And so we hope that if you are watching this now, that you'll go back to the very beginning. We are the Alternative Gift Fairs of Greater Washington. And we usually have a fair in Tacoma Park once a year. But due to COVID this year, we can't do that. So this is our next best thing. And so so what we're trying to do here today is, because you can't go to the church to meet all the people who are all the charities and talk to them, welcoming them here today. Um, and so the idea is that you'll talk a little bit about your group. Definitely talk about the three gifts that you're offering, why how you got involved. You'll have about 12 to 15 minutes to go through everything. And then at the end, we'll ask some questions to you and take some questions from others. Um, the aggw.org site is up and running. So we definitely want you to send that around or go to that site and view all the gifts. One of the cool things we have this year, Mimi talked about this a little bit, but this was like a last minute idea that we threw into the website, was this all-in-one shopping. So you can go on there right now and you can, well, two things I want to mention about the website. One, Mimi created the new logo for AGGW, which is the little gift inside the heart. When we saw that, we were so excited about that. It really sums up who we are and what we're trying to do. The second, so as I was saying, we do have this express shopping. If you go to our site, you can click on express shopping. And what that does is it allows you to pick, we went through and you can buy one of every low cost gift that's available. And then you can buy one, or you could click on one button and buy one of each medium gift and one of the larger gifts. And then if you really want, we have this one of every gift. So this might be cool. I was thinking about this for your office workers. If you all pulled together, right? What if your whole office or your organization went out and, it's $1,800, which is a lot of money for one person. But if you're in an office of 20 people, that's no problem. You can pull that together and you can buy one of every gift. And it just goes to help. 100% of the money goes towards the gifts. 100%. So there's no overhead costs, or there's no credit card fees. AGGW covers that. So, and we're included in those gifts as well to help cover those. So without any further ado, let's move on to the first bikes of the world. I'm going to welcome Taylor.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Jim. Thanks to everyone here. It's really great to be with you all virtually today. This is definitely the Alternative Gift Fair of Greater Washington is definitely something that we enjoy participating in each year. And obviously this is a kind of a strange year, but it's good to be here and do this virtually and to also learn a little bit more about each of the other organizations that are part of the gift fair as well. So as Jim said, I am representing Bikes for the World. We are a bicycle reuse nonprofit. We're based in Rockville. We've been around since 2005. I've been involved with the organization for probably a decade, started as a volunteer and have worked essentially every position, and now I'm the executive director. So there's definitely the community aspect to it in terms of involvement. And so our main objective is to collect donated bicycles, bicycle parts in the greater Washington, Baltimore area. And what we do is we partner with grassroots nonprofits and NGOs in developing countries and also domestic partners in the US. And so we distribute these bikes to these partner organizations, and the bikes are used for all sorts of different programs, transportation programs, education, bikes for healthcare workers, bikes for environmental conservation rangers. There's it's a pretty blank canvas as far as what a bike can be used for and how it can make an impact on somebody's life and in a community, depending on where they're located. And so that's the main thrust of what we do, but also a big part of our mission is community engagement and volunteerism here locally. We really do offer a lot of volunteer opportunities for adults, for youth, for school groups, hands-on, kind of hands-on opportunities for, especially for students, which is something I really appreciate that we do, because a lot of kids at really any grade level just really don't have that sort of opportunity in school to learn the value of working with your hands and to learn these transferable skills that you can use throughout the rest of your life. So that's another big part of what we do. And I guess the third thrust of it is environmental aspect and reducing the amount of garbage that's going in the waste stream locally. I mean, it's really about recycling. And I would say probably, I don't know, 2/3 or so, and maybe not quite that many, but a huge number of the about 10,000 bikes a year that come through Bikes for the World would probably otherwise end up in the waste stream. And so, it's really about trying to be good environmental stewards and reusing the resources that we have. And that's a big part of um, where our volunteers and our support comes from. Like some of the other organizations have noted, um, the majority of our support is from the community, is from individual donors and small grant giving. There's no huge dedicated funding stream or anything like that. We're a staff of 3 people, so we do rely um, a lot on volunteers, and that's been really tough in 2020. Obviously, we haven't had the same capacity to have volunteers on site and help out, so it's been a big lift for myself and my 2 other staff people and our board. It's been a big lift, but again, we're able to do that through the great community that we have in the DC Baltimore area that really helps us thrive. And to touch on the gifts that we've got listed here, I mean, they're fairly self-explanatory. I mean, one is you know $25 essentially covers the costs of one bike. So one bike being collected, prepared for shipment, and delivered overseas. And we're not shipping individual bikes or 10 bikes here, 10 bikes there. We're sending 40-foot shipping containers full of bikes to partner organizations. So each partner organization, depending on their needs and the scope of their work, they may get 1 or 2 shipments a year. They may get 6 shipments a year. It really depends. But there's obviously costs, and all of the bikes and spare parts and accessories and tools, everything that we send to our partners is all donated at no cost to them. So, we don't pass those costs on. But obviously there's a cost with getting the bikes from the point of donation, from the point of collection to the partner site. And so, $25 is, if you break it down, that's kind of roughly what it costs to get one bike from point A to point B. The other gifts are also relatively self-explanatory. $50 buys a relatively basic bike maintenance kit or tool kit, and $100 buys a bit more of an advanced kit, something that's a bit more specific and specialized to the mechanical needs and capacities of the partner organization, wherever that toolkit goes. And I've seen firsthand from visiting our partner programs that having access to good quality tools it's really paramount, and that is really helps. It really helps the longevity and the life of the bikes that we're sending, because they can be repaired locally, so that it can be a one-time. It's a one-time cost for the folks who are ending up with the bike, and if there's access to spare parts and tools locally to keep those bikes running, then it really becomes a very affordable transportation option for folks when you look at it in a long-term perspective. Um, I mean, and as an anecdote on that, last year I was in Costa Rica visiting some of the very rural communities where our bikes go in partnership with a microcredit program in Costa Rica that we've worked with for 15 years. These are communities of 100, 150 people that have had, they've had electricity for only a decade. So they're still relatively remote, and starting to send them more advanced complete toolkits was really a game changer. And I even had one mechanic tell me that before he started receiving those toolkits, the way that he was taking apart and putting back together bicycle chains was using a hammer and a nail to bang the chain pin out and put it back in together. And so it's something really simple, like, a $10 chain tool to you and I might seem like something really simple and not impactful, but in that situation, it really does make a big difference. And so, that I think is, for us, it's all about, you want, we've seen, bikes make a huge impact in people's lives. It's a really simple thing, but with a bike, somebody can go 4 times as far in the same amount of time that it would take them to walk. So, it's a bike is keeping kids in school. It's adding additional income to families because people are able to work and also take care of their domestic tasks at home. It's getting access to a greater breadth of population for healthcare workers, and also from an economic development and job creation perspective, what so many of our partner programs are doing is, creating economic generation opportunities in their communities and creating vocational training opportunities. And so, a bike is a really simple thing, but like I mentioned at the outset, it's a blank canvas that can really be used in so many creative ways to make a real impact. And that's really what, that's what we're about and what we aim to do.
It's fantastic. It's such a great example of how, like, one little thing you think, oh, it's just a bike, but then it just branches out on all these different things that you were mentioning. It's just fantastic.
Mhm.
And so so how many bikes per year do you ship out, you think?
Um, well,
Typical year.
in a normal year, it's probably somewhere. It's usually around 12,000 bikes.
Wow.
This past fiscal year was um, about 9,500, so it was a bit less. We lost about 2.5 months of
Yeah.
standard operations in the spring, um, but yeah, so we're usually shipping out about 2, maybe 3 shipments a month, um, on a regular basis.
As someone who bikes a little bit, I know how difficult it's been to get bike parts and to get bikes repaired these days. Is just you're waiting for months sometimes at the beginning of this anyway
Right.
to get your bike fixed.
And
And
that's definitely been, I mean, and that's been true. We've seen that with all of our partner programs. That's been the case everywhere. That's not just the case in this region or in the US. That's the case everywhere. Is that items are not as available, and anything that is available becomes a much more valuable resource. And so one of the things that has been really crucial, and I think this is really important for folks who want to support Bikes for the World, is that our partner programs have been able to pivot and do different things with bikes during the pandemic, and that's only because they had the bikes there, they had the resources there, they had the experience, they had the standing in the community, um, to do those things. And that, I think, is really key. Is if you have the resource there, when there's a crisis or when there's a time of need, you can much more easily pivot and serve your community in a different way. And that's really only possible through the support of donors and folks in the community here.
yeah, we have about another minute with you, and I just wonder if you could talk about where are these bikes sent? You mentioned Costa Rica. Where else have you
So
sent them to?
we have, right. So we have partners in a dozen countries as well as the US. So we have partnerships in, or programs we support in El Salvador, Costa Rica, Barbados, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Kenya, Rwanda, Madagascar, Morocco, and South Africa, as well as the Philippines.
Fantastic. Well, that's an
And
excellent group, and we really appreciate you coming on today and sharing that information. That's very cool, and it's great. It's a great group.
yeah, thanks very much. We appreciate it. And if anybody is interested also just in anybody who's local is interested in donating a bike, that information is also on our website. We have um, regularly recurring opportunities for people to drop bikes in Rockville, and even as soon as tomorrow. So if anybody's interested, that information is always on our website. But thank you very much for hosting us, and it's really been a pleasure.
All right, bikes for the world, Taylor. Thank you. All right. Hey, staying with another Taylor, we have the Legal Resource Center for Violence on Women, and I see you there, Taylor. Welcome.
Hi. Hi, Jim. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
My name is Taylor. I'm the project coordinator at the Legal Resource Center on Violence Against Women, the LRC for short. Thank you so much for having us here today. We feel grateful to be involved with this wonderful event again, even despite the differences this year. So the LRC is a small national nonprofit. We assist domestic violence survivors with interstate custody cases. We're a small team of 3 people. So that's myself, and we have 2 part-time attorneys on staff, Deborah and Maria. At the LRC, we believe that domestic violence survivors should not have to choose between fleeing from their abusers and retaining custody. However, we've encountered many survivors who manage to escape violent relationships, but lose their children in subsequent custody cases. Now, especially, more survivors are seeking to relocate when they're trapped in their homes with abusers due to COVID-19 and the shutdown and stay-at-home orders. So the LRC is working to change this by training attorneys, advocates, and court personnel to improve legal assistance in interstate custody cases, and by providing information to survivors who call us and the professionals who assist them. Most cases are referred to the LRC because the survivor is thinking of leaving the state with kids to escape violence, or maybe they've already left the state with their children escaping abuse. Many survivors are also referred by the National Domestic Violence Hotline or by other victim advocacy programs, shelters, legal service organizations nationwide. So we operate a hotline for survivors, their attorneys, and victim advocates. And we assist survivors by providing legal information about leaving the state with children and connect survivors to attorneys in their own states for consultations or for possible representation if that's what's needed. We also discuss safety planning with survivors, as oftentimes in the event of leaving an abusive situation is the most dangerous time for them and for their children. So the contributions this year will support 3 things. The first is the relocation guides and legal materials to benefit survivors. The second is parental kidnapping consultation for a survivor fleeing violence. And the third is legal information for a survivor relocating with children. And I know they all sound very similar, so I can discuss them a little bit more. So the first one, which is relocation guides and legal materials. This gift will support survivors of domestic violence by providing accurate legal information to them. So through the distribution of legal tools to survivors and to their attorneys, informed decisions can be made that will help keep the survivor and her children safe. When the survivor is leaving the home state where they've lived and going to a state where maybe their family is, that would be considered the refuge state and the more safe state to be in. The second gift is a parental kidnapping consultation for a victim fleeing violence. And this gift will provide a survivor of domestic violence who is attempting to flee the state with her children or who has already fled the state and is now in the refuge state with a free consultation from an attorney in the home state to get information on the parental kidnapping and state relocation laws. So part of my job as the project coordinator is to arrange for survivors to have that consultation for free. So I contact, using our database of resources, I contact attorneys in the state where it's needed, advocate on behalf of the survivor, and explain the importance in them receiving this information. That way she or he can stay in the proper safe state with her family or friends. And the third is legal information for survivors relocating with children. So this gift will connect the survivor of domestic violence with one of our attorneys on staff to obtain legal information about relocating with children. The attorney will help the survivor understand the different laws that are involved when leaving the state with children, um, and get them ready to speak with an attorney in the state that's needed to get direct legal advice and know what types of questions they should be asking in their situation. A lot of times, these survivors aren't sure what types of questions to ask, or they just may be very confused about the entire process. So, our attorneys speak with them beforehand to get them ready for those interviews. So I do have one case example here, and I've changed the identifying information to protect the survivor. But in one case, for example, a domestic violence survivor from New Hampshire was seeking the return of her 2-year-old after the perpetrator abducted the child to Georgia. The survivor's attorney in New Hampshire contacted the LRC for assistance. And with our guidance, the attorney obtained a custody order for the client. When the perpetrator was arrested and extradited, the local jurisdiction scheduled a hearing, which required the survivor to find representation in less than 24 hours. So that morning, I made numerous calls and miraculously obtained legal representation for the client at the hearing the same afternoon. Um, and fortunately, the judge ordered the survivor's 2-year-old child to be returned safely to her right away. So they were reunited that afternoon. And we're grateful to have facilitated that outcome. Another case example is there was a victim advocate who contacted us um, about referring a survivor that she was assisting with a 5-month-old infant. The mother had fled from Arizona to Pennsylvania with the baby, um, and the baby was only 3 weeks old when the father had left. The father had assaulted them, and the baby was present. And the assault included threatening with a knife. So several months later, the father filed for custody in Arizona, and the mother needed legal representation across the country. We connected her with an attorney in Arizona and then provided her attorney with case law summaries and support so that that attorney can make unique legal arguments given the child's age at the time. Unfortunately, the judge in Arizona dismissed the case, permitting the mother and the child to remain safely in Pennsylvania, which is where all her family was. So we do have a website, and I can post it in the chat. We've got more information on our organization. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
That's great. Wow. Um, how many attorneys do you have on your database? Is it nationwide?
It is nationwide, and we've recently been adding to it. When we do conduct trainings, we input all the attorneys and advocates who attend those trainings into our database. So I believe right now we have almost 6,000.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a good number, and they're all very helpful when we reach out when survivors are needing assistance.
And so your organization is nationwide. Is it across the U.S.? Are there different chapters? Are there different?
So we only have one location in Tacoma Park, and we assist nationwide. So we get calls from all over. At times, we also receive international calls, and we don't assist with international cases, but we usually refer them out to our sister organizations.
Mm-hmm. And as far as the materials go, I mean, where do you get your funding to pay for all those materials other than AGGW?
Yeah, so we really rely on donations. We send out direct appeals yearly, applying for grants and seeking grants when we have the opportunity to, and we're partially funded as well federally.
Oh, good.
Mm.
Good. I was going to say, where would these people go without you?
Yeah, and we were really worried at the beginning of the pandemic, not being able to work from the office. and survivors not having the opportunity to make calls while staying home with the abusers. But luckily, we were able to continue our services despite working remotely and getting back to survivors at reasonable times.
Have you seen a big uptick in calls since COVID hit it?
Yeah, we have. We actually saw a bit of a drop, I think, in March and April. And after those months, there was a large uptick in calls.
Right. I read about that, that more people sitting at home, not being able to go out can lead to additional issues. Um,
Yeah, it is certainly a dangerous time for survivors and their kids.
how many calls do you usually take a year?
So let me think. In 2020 so far, I think we're almost at 1,000. It's in the high 900s right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's a lot.
Yeah, and it has increased since the organization began in 2003. It's gone up since.
Right. Are you guys, this, Mimi wrote a question here, but I recall this, I keep saying these things about things that you can do, like if back in the days you can go to a bar, like there was certain things where, like if you were in an abusive relationship and you needed help, there's a certain drink you could order, or kind of like a certain thing that would let the server know that you need help or you're trouble, that you're in trouble. Is that one? Do you guys do that kind of stuff, or you just give them materials that are? Do you come up with your own materials, or are these materials that are prepared already from the federal government or from the law offices?
Yeah, so the attorneys on staff prepare their own materials to give out, and it's all based off of what we've seen and where the needed areas are. In preparing to relocate, we help survivors figure out what documents they need, connect them with victim advocates in their area, as well with shelters. So before they leave the state with their kids, they might get everything ready, like paperwork and documents, to go to a shelter in the state. And then from the shelter, we connect them with advocates in their area to help them leave the state safely. But I have seen that as well, Mimi, in restaurants and airports, different signals to indicate when help is needed. And I think that is very amazing, very clever, and much needed.
Yeah, unfortunately, right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll just put it out there. What I was hearing was about something particularly for video calls, because now so many people are working from home and there's a lot of video calling. And they were saying that you just put up your hand, put your thumb in, and cover it. And that's a nonverbal way that you can, and you can do it in front of yourself so the person behind you won't see. But it's just a nonverbal way to indicate to the person on the other end that you need help, assistance is required, etc. Just so that they can get that to coworkers or get that to family in a way that is safer for them.
Yeah,
So.
that's really interesting. And we do experience that when contacting and staying in touch with survivors, to always ask if it's safe to talk in the moment, or what times are safe, if the abuser does go to work. And it changes with everybody. But the pandemic has made it more difficult to connect.
All right, well, thank you so much, Taylor, for coming out. And this is just a great example of like just the breadth of groups that we have in here, that we have so many different groups that go to unfortunately, there's so many different charities out there to help, right? Because it's needed, right? Because we're not going to find them. They're not provided elsewhere. So it has to be volunteer groups that do, and nonprofits that do this sort of work that is so critical in so many different aspects. So thank you so much for your work, Taylor.
Yeah, thank you, Jim.
All right. All right. So we'd like to welcome Ruth from Meals on Wheels Tacoma Park.
Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us here today. And I will also add that it's so wonderful to see how AGGW can continue this wonderful event in new ways. And
so before you start, I just want to ask, is that a real orange tree behind you?
It is. It
nice.
is.
Wow, look at them go.
Yeah, mandarin tree. And we bring it in the winter and roll it out on the deck in the summer. And yeah, it makes a nice backdrop also.
Fantastic. All right, sorry, please.
So thank you for your organization and your enthusiasm for my Satsumatri. Um, I am Ruth Masterson. I am with Meals on Wheels of Tacoma Park, based right here in Tacoma Park, with the mission of delivering healthy, delicious meals to our homebound neighbors. When we were founded fully 50 years ago, we were a very small group with big ideas about how to get homemade, healthy meals to as many of our homebound neighbors as possible. I myself was just a little one in those days and on the West Coast, but to many of our homebound, but to the kind and lovely grown-ups of the day, they were clearly thinking globally and acting locally. They saw that right in the midst of our own neighborhoods, people were slipping through the cracks and going hungry, but it was invisible because those individuals were tucked into their homes and apartments on their own. Elders, people living with disabilities, those recovering from surgery, managing illness or difficult treatments, were experiencing hunger and loneliness. Over the last 5 decades, our scrappy little group has served determinedly thanks to the dedication of my predecessors. And I have been with Meals on Wheels of Tacoma Park for the past 2 years, and we are continuing that same commitment. We've also responded to 2 major upheavals. The first was actually in 2019, when another Meals on Wheels program asked us if we could take on all their clients. Of course, we said yes, because we sure couldn't say no. And that seemed like a really big deal at the time, but we quickly learned that it paled in comparison to a global pandemic. So the past 9 months obviously have been a wild ride for everyone. At Meals on Wheels, in the last 2 weeks of March, 75% of our volunteer kitchen assistants and deliverers stepped down because of their age, or they had high-risk conditions, or their families asked them to stop. At the same time, our phone was ringing off the hook with clients wanting to sign on. So in that same period of time, our client base doubled from 65 clients on March 1st to 130 by the end of April. At the same time, more than 150 new volunteers, mostly younger people who were suddenly working from home or in some cases laid off, they stepped forward from the community offering to volunteer. It's an amazing, crazy time. With all the intakes, training new people, we were building the plane as we flew it, adjusting our procedures to keep our volunteers and clients safe from the virus. We're trying to train them even as we are creating new procedures. Through it all, our mission remained laser focused, core of what we do: deliver healthy, delicious meals to our homebound neighbors who would otherwise go hungry. So I'll talk a little bit about the gifts that you can purchase for the special people on your holiday gift list. These gifts are specifically designed to put food directly into the hands of our participants in a real and measurable way. The first gift is $7, provides a bag lunch and full dinner served hot off the stove for 1 day for a homebound neighbor. The bag lunch is packed by our volunteer kitchen brigade. They are the behind the scenes heroes and quite a lively crew. Our cook, Nuncia, is meanwhile cooking the hot meal, preparing an entree and 2 sides that are packed up and delivered to the clients. And I always just am amazed as the food gets cooked and heated, it is packed and delivered. The next gift is $35, gives our clients those same 2 meals a day, but for an entire week. Our service is offered to each of our clients Monday through Friday, day in, day out. Meals are delivered by our really terrific volunteer delivery team. They are our boots on the ground. They get food directly to our recipients, and they do it with kindness and compassion, checking in with our clients, and obviously with adjusted procedures during the pandemic, but they keep on delivering. Our third gift is $50, and that translates to 5 days worth of shelf-stable meals. And these are meals that are prepackaged and delivered as snow day boxes. They contain food that will help our recipients stock their pantry and provide sustenance for days we can't deliver. I really could not be more proud of or more impressed by our team and our community, our small staff of part-time neighbors, our volunteers. Thanks to them, our volunteers, and to donors like you in our community, we have not had to decline even one single client. We have lost a fair number of clients during the last 9 months to COVID or mysterious hospitalizations, but we do continue to add new clients every week, and we have over 100 clients still today. More clients means more food needs to be purchased. We use recyclable, compostable, or reusable packaging materials as much as possible, but more clients also means more packaging supplies. More clients means we need more food storage, and it puts a strain on our refrigerators. We've had to replace 2 of them during the pandemic already. More clients means more routes. We grew from 7 routes to 10, and that means more phone calls with clients, more phone calls with their families, and we do that quite a lot, and their loved ones, and also social workers. The work that we do at Meals on Wheels is really wonderful. It's just bigger in every way since the start of the pandemic. As I mentioned earlier, let's see, I guess you'll handle the questions later. So as I mentioned earlier, we have not turned away a single client. We have stretched our space and our hearts and our work hours to meet the need. Specifically in 2019, including the bump of growth when we took on new clients from the other group, we delivered a little over 36,000 meals. This year, 2020, since the beginning of March this year, 2020 starting in January, but with doubling capacity starting in March, we are on track to deliver more than 43,000 meals by the end of the year. And next year, 2021, we are poised and we anticipate delivering at least 50,000 meals. We are doing this out of the same small kitchen and with the absolute minimum growth in staff. We're growing and changing in other ways as well. So I am delighted to share an announcement. This is the first time I've been able to share it publicly. We are currently seeking a second cook to prepare vegetarian meals. It's a part-time position, but we need the help to be able to do that. And we do already adjust our meals to accommodate allergies, and all of our meals are diabetic friendly already. But this is the first time we have been able to formally offer an alternative meal option. And hiring is open now for that. So if you have any referrals for the position, please reach out to us or to me after today's event. We encourage everyone in Tacoma Park and around our neighborhoods to learn more about the local Meals on Wheels services we provide, regardless of your level of connection or interest. I think it's wonderful to know about one another, and also find out what you can do to keep our essential service rolling. You can find us online at our website, www.motacoma.org. That is MOW for Meals on Wheels and Tacoma for Tacoma Park. Or follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Both are at Tacoma. And thank you for joining me today, and I'm delighted to answer any questions.
Fantastic. Meals on Wheels is a national organization, isn't it?
No, and that's a great question. Meals on Wheels is 5,000 different programs that each spring up independently. The name is not trademarked. Each program does what it wants to do. It is anarchy out there between the programs. Some are tiny, some are large. Many of the smaller programs in our size range don't have their own kitchen because of the cost. They instead contract usually with a hospital and pick up frozen meals that they deliver. And others are enormous, hundreds of staff, thousands of recipients. So it just varies dramatically. There is a national association, but that's a membership association that fewer than half of the Meals on Wheels programs have joined. And they do advocacy on the Hill and a conference. They do wonderful work, but they don't deliver any meals. They're kind of herding cats.
Right. And so you talk a little bit about the meals. I mean, it's not just white bread, mystery meat, piece of cheese wrapped in the saran wrap, right? It's a little bit more than that.
Heavens no, it's not like that. I mean, when you mentioned the bread first, so the bread, most of the bread is donated by Spring Mill Bakery. So it is amazing and absolutely top quality. You know, they mill it themselves and cook it themselves with, you know, minimal ingredients, and it's terrific. We also get some bread donated from Panera, which is very generous of them. In a pinch, we'll buy from the grocery store, but then we always get whole wheat, so not white, not Wonder Bread. We source organic ingredients when we can. Obviously, there's cost issues involved there, but we glean from the Crossroads Community Farmers Market. That's one of our partnerships. So April through November, we get terrific quantities of that food. And we've also been getting about $4,000 a month worth of donated food from places like Whole Foods and farmers markets and other sources. So we are constantly seeking to improve our food quality. We do get standard basic grocery fare as our basic standby, but we're always looking to improve that. And we're successful quite a bit.
Yeah, I know this area. I work with another group over in, I live in Hyattsville, and there's another group over there where we're doing some similar things. And the amount of people who are asking for food right now and the food distributions that are going on
Yes.
during the pandemic is just staggering.
Mhm.
And I know you mentioned that you had twice as many people coming in asking for food.
Mhm.
But then the nice thing I want to hear it again, that you had volunteers step up.
Yes, yes. So many people. The phone was ringing off the hook with clients and new volunteers. So it was completely chaotic and a huge amount of work, but so wonderful to see the interest and commitment, and that people were thinking of us, and they were willing to, you know, even in the early days when we didn't know as much as we know now, which is still lacking, but people were willing to step up. And you know, we were introducing masks, new procedures, ways to create space between people. But we haven't had any issues. I'm so pleased. There have been certainly no outbreaks, and not even any cases associated with us.
Ruth, last question is, where would these people get food if it wasn't for Meals on Wheels?
I think they would be sort of helter-skelter all over the place. There are a number of food pantries around, so maybe some of them would try to find neighbors to get food for them. Some of them have distant family. I think, thinking of one woman who joined this summer, and her daughter had been doing Grubhub and meal deliveries from restaurants for her, which for a treat, that's great. But for every day, it kind of adds up. Yeah. And then you get a lot of, you know, salt and sugar and things like that.
Sure, sure. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming. It's such important work that you're doing. And I know it's just never ending, but just know that what you're doing is just so important for
Thank
this
you.
area.
I saw a question from Mimi. It looks like I might have one more minute to answer. She asked about decorating the bags.
Yeah.
Not exactly. When we switched over as we grew and we needed to change procedures, we no longer use paper bags, so they're harder to decorate. We used to have kids and senior groups and so forth decorating the bags for us. It's super charming. We're doing now more cards that we slip in, or napkins. So people are regularly contributing wonderful things. The 2 days before Thanksgiving, we got a box from a woman named Dawn in Pennsylvania. And I opened it up, and there were over 100 cards in there that she'd personally handwritten, you know, beautiful little cards, some of them hand decorated, some by kids. And she had written, you know, these are hard times, be strong, stay safe. So we're able to get those out to clients. So we're still getting treats and nice artwork out, but it's not on the outside of the bag anymore.
And the last question I have for you is, so with Meals on Wheels, how does it work? Do people call in and request a meal, or are there referrals as well? Like, hey, my neighbor I know needs help, and can you help them, kind of thing?
Yes, absolutely. So Mimi asked about, sort of tickled me to mention that, yes, absolutely, we are happy to accept more. Our clients never tire of charming cards, and just knowing that they're not forgotten by the community, that they, you know, they might be tucked away in their home and unable to get out, but there are people thinking of them. So absolutely. And referrals come from all over the place. So we get a lot of calls from people concerned about their family members. They call from all over the country. They might be 3 blocks away, or they might be in Texas or Washington State. And they say, you know, my aunt, my father, whoever, needs your meals. And then we set up with them. We have maybe about 10% of our meals, we get contributions every month from the relative who's living distantly. And of course, these days, distant can be not very far away because of the virus. Yeah. And was there another part of the question you asked?
I was just wondering if you've got referrals or if the people call themselves or.
We get a lot of self referrals. So people just call up and say, I need meals. We also end up acting as a clearinghouse to for a lot of the programs. People will call us and they might be anywhere. And so we do the research and help them find the program that's closest to them.
Oh, great.
So we get probably 5 calls a week where we're referring on, but we coach them on who to call and give them some numbers. A lot of self referrals. We get a lot of social worker referrals. And every now and then a doctor or a politician will call up, you know,
Right.
all over the place.
Well, Ruth, thank you so much for the work that you're doing and all your volunteers. It's really appreciated. And thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
on today.
Thank you.
All right. Our last group in this hour is we want to welcome Jamie from Bilingual Education in Central America.
Thanks, Jim. And thank you to the entire AGGW family. I've just been sitting and listening and reflecting upon all of the monumental efforts that the groups have talked about needing to pivot to be in service of their communities. And I know that you've all done the same thing. So I'm really grateful to be invited back and to be in community with all of you today. I'm Jamie Coppell, and I'm going to talk today about an organization that I founded called Bilingual Education for Central America, or BECA. And BECA has a dual-pronged mission. We promote multicultural collaboration, and we provide a high-quality, low to no cost bilingual education through collaboration with 3 community-run schools in Honduras in Central America. Those 3 schools each serve children in grades preschool through 9th grade, and providing educational access and empowerment to the most financially disadvantaged members of a community is a defining characteristic of what we are doing through that multicultural collaboration. So for those who don't speak Spanish, it will come perhaps as no surprise that BECA is a word that means scholarship in Spanish. And September 2021, which is just around the corner, will actually mark 20 years since I moved to Honduras, originally just with the smaller idea of collaborating to open one school that could serve as a model for inexpensive, high quality bilingual education in Central America. And actually, so this picture is old now, but here's a picture of me with one of our first classes of first graders back in 2002, I think this photo is. And at that time, Hurricane Mitch had devastated the country only 23 months before. When I arrived, the wreckage was still present in so many places. Entire towns had been leveled, bridges were out all over the country. More than 3,000 schools in a country that at the time had a population of less than 7 million people. More than 3,000 schools had been seriously damaged. So there were lots of folks who were contributing to important relief efforts. They were sending school supplies or contributing to school building repairs. But nobody was addressing this larger systemic issue of the need to level the economic playing field by creating access to a high quality bilingual education, which at the time was something only wealthy people could access. And so perhaps in the naivete of youth, and the energy of a community that invigorated me, we decided we could do this. We could create that model. And I'm going to give you the spoiler now, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what it looks like. 20 years later, and graduates from BECA's 3 partner schools are engineers, they're doctors, they're business owners, they're civic leaders. And yes, and this one's the point of the most pride, perhaps, they are half of the teaching force in our partner schools. We are so proud of what we have done as a very still scrappy grassroots organization that is incredibly people powered, which is my way of telling you that every single dollar we seek to raise is a dollar that directly benefits our programs. And I'm also coming to you today to say that today, the country and our communities are once again reeling from the devastation of two rapid fire hurricanes, Eta and Iota, that struck in the midst of this global pandemic just this past month. And the devastation is unbelievable, and the need is so, so great. And so the alternative gift fair's timing could not be better in the spirit of our needs to serve our communities being so much more profound than usual. So I'm going to kind of tell you a little bit about our gifts, which are very much related to the dire needs on the ground this moment. So our first gift is providing relief resources to displaced family members, community members in our school communities, providing them with food and water and other essentials. So this past month, to give you a little bit more detail, Hurricane Eta tore through Central America. It wreaked havoc in Nicaragua, and then it continued through Honduras, leaving devastation in its wake. Several of our community members, including a few of our graduates, were actually trapped on roofs for several days awaiting rescue because there were not enough boats to actually get to folks to get to them, and the water had just risen too fast. Power was out across the country for more than a week, everywhere. Water was out in our communities. In fact, in one of our communities, it's still out. And getting potable water deliveries has been made incredibly difficult because of the number of bridges that were destroyed. This is a picture of one of our teachers' family's home. It was completely destroyed. They run a small school supplies store out of their home, which is the major source of income for his family. That's kind of just, that is what his entire family home looks like. And this is not unusual. This is Orlando's family. And so in the chat, I'm actually also going to paste a picture of the airport that is closest to our three schools, San Pedro Sula Airport. If you click on the link, you'll see that the airport has been, the water's slowly receding, but it was under 2 meters or about 7 feet of water. And they don't expect to be able to open it for commercial flights for quite a while still, which, as you can imagine, makes humanitarian efforts even more complicated. But there's hope. So here's an image of our teachers and our school administrators working together with community to assemble relief packages for families in our schools who've lost so much. And here's the reality, and I've heard it in each of the presenters today. The reality is that because our work is so human-centered, so relationship-based, and because there's virtually no social services infrastructure in the country, Becca is collaborating with our incredible Honduran partners, regular everyday community members who are playing the role of superheroes in this moment in particular by coordinating and supporting relief efforts because they know their community members, they know who has need, and that makes all the difference. So we're making sure folks have those basic needs fulfilled as we're also turning to recovery. We have a number of families who have been displaced, and if their children are going to be able to continue their education, and if all of them are to recover from this trauma, we've placed a number of them in apartments we've been able to rent, and we're working with them to plan for longer term recovery. And so I mentioned this, and I'll put a fine point on it, as an educational nonprofit, a large part of the work and how it connects to our mission is that it's crucial that we stay in touch with families in crisis so that we can support them in this trauma and ensure that they are able to stay members of our community so that those relationships stay strong and their children can persevere. And your gifts and contributions to this effort are vital. As I mentioned, we are a super scrappy nonprofit, really proud of our human powered nature. And we already spend well more than 97% of dollars directly on programming. So this financial need I'm talking about is well beyond that. So we literally cannot do this work without new supporters. And so we're grateful to be able to bring that need to all of you. So I'm talking about hurricane relief, but our second gift is related to this other reality that we are all living around the world, and that is the pandemic, that is COVID. So schools in Honduras, just like in many places, have been closed to in-person learning since last March. And for our communities, this is even more challenging than for children and families most places in the United States and elsewhere. Most of our families live in very humble homes. They don't have internet or computers. And so last year we pulled off the Herculean feat of making sure we remained connected in meaningful ways to every single student. We hand delivered resources to those who didn't even have a cell phone connection that was consistent, so they could download learning resources and have packets. We revamped our entire training to ensure students could actually prepare for this year and teach in the ways that virtual learning requires. And we received a really generous contribution this fall that has allowed us to purchase tablets that we're now in the process of getting to our students. But the final hurdle is actual internet access, which is extraordinarily expensive in Central America. And so as the pandemic stretches on and so many of our families are now in even greater crisis and we desperately need to stay in touch with them, it's really critical and really costly to make sure that we have access to internet that we can make available to them, so that our students and families can be emotionally connected with each other, which anyone who's a parent or an auntie or an uncle or anyone who knows children and what it means to be a family in a crisis knows how that important that is. And so that is our second gift. So we have the 3 schools, each have about 250 students. So in total right now we have 715 students across the 3 schools. So each classroom is about 25 students, and we keep it capped there to ensure good relationships. So our third gift is one that is a source of real joy for me. So we run a number of programs outside of our everyday work of providing a high quality education. And they're intended to complement and support our students and families' learning experiences and the connections with their teachers. And one of them is called Libros y Familias, or Books and Families. And that is a program that actually is adapted from Dr. Alma Florada out of San Francisco State University. And it's intended to ensure meaningful dialogue between home and school in a mutual trust and respect model. And it is a day every year at each of our schools where families and students come together. We did it virtually last spring to engage in literacy workshops, discussions, reading, and art activities. And as a result, we've been able to see a direct increase in the amount of time parents are spending reading high quality literature to their children at home that reflects culturally relevant storylines for their children. It won't be perhaps surprising to you to know that it's really hard to access good literature in Honduras. There's not a strong printing industry there. And so we don't like to just send down books that candidly feature a lot of white, blonde, blue-eyed children, which are often what's donated. And so being able to work with publishing houses that give us deep discounts still comes with a cost. And so the resources that we hope to direct from this effort to that allow us to purchase in bulk books that tell stories and reflect the lived experiences of our students, and ensure that those are the books that they have in their homes to be learners and lovers of reading. So I will stop there in case there are questions, but just say that I'm just really grateful to be here again. The support we received last year came at a critical time, and it's an even more critical time this year. So thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. And how many students are in the 3 schools, did you say?
Yeah, about 715 right now.
Wow. Very cool. Well, that's great, and I love hearing the success stories that happen with all this. It's really cool, and you're just doing great work in places that totally need it, that wouldn't know what they'd do without you. So, I always say, I have several points of the meaning of life. There's 3 basic things, but one of them is leave it better than you found it. And I think with all the groups today, that's such a crucial big thing.